Good day, everyone. My name is Marvellous Olaposi, a student of University of Lagos, as well as an undergraduate legal intern at Alem Telecoms Academy. Today, I'll be giving a lecture on the licensing regime of Nigerian telecommunication industry. Licensing is a core aspect of telecommunication in Nigeria, as it provides the legal basis for telecommunication service providers to deploy network facilities and offer services to consumers. Licensing is a business arrangement whereby a party who is a licensor and has ownership rights over a property allows another to make use of such property for a specific period of time. Licensing could also be a situation whereby the government allows someone to do something that would ordinarily be unlawful, but subject to certain conditions such as payment of fines or proof of requisite capacity to perform such an action for which the license is being required. A license is therefore a revocable permission to do something that would have been unlawful or that could constitute trespass in tort law. A license is such that could be granted by a state or by a private party. However, in this lecture, we'll be talking about licenses that can be granted by a state. A license by a state is the right to operate a business. Is a right to operate a business that is not unlawful but could be prohibitory by the statute. In most parts of the world, a license by a state is required for telecommunication service providers to be able to operate facilities as well as provide services to consumers. Licensing in telecommunication is being viewed as a recent development due to the fact that prior to this, telecommunication service providers were providing services as a public service through a government department. This is similar to the situation in Nigeria, where through the market liberation as well as the privatization reforms, the NCC, which is the Nigerian Communication Commission, was established under the Nigerian Commission Act to license as well as regulate new and upcoming telecommunication service providers in the 1980s. However, it was not until 2001 before NITEL, which was the incumbent telecommunication network operator in Nigeria then, was brought under the Nigerian Communication Commission's licensing regime. This is not the case in all countries, as countries such as UK and United States of America, which operated telecommunication services under monopoly, were still subject to licensing under the law, which predates the liberation era. The legal basis for licensing of telecommunication service providers in Nigeria is provided for in Section 31, Subsection 1 of the Nigerian Communication Act, which provides that a network provider cannot operate a network facility or provide network services except under a communication license or exempted under the regulation made by the commissioner under Nigerian Communication Act. Section 31 subsection 2 then goes further to criminalize the breach of Section 31 subsection 1 by providing for a penalty of a fee no less than the initial fee of the license or imprisonment of a period not exceeding 1 year or both. The main aims and objectives of telecommunication licensing in Nigeria under the Nigerian Communication Act is provided for in Section 1 of the Act, which includes the promotion of the implementation of the national policy, the promotion of modern and affordable network services, as well as the promotion of a fair and healthy competition amongst network telecommunication service providers. However, a license given to a telecommunication, let's say a telecommunication service provider, could be revoked if the service provider does not comply with the instructions of the license under the Nigerian Communication Act. For example, the Universal Access Service license can be revoked if in instances such as where it has not been fully operational to the satisfaction of the Nigerian Communication Commission from 6 months of the grant of such a license. It can also be revoked in instances whereby the equipment being used is not the type approved by the Nigerian Communication Act. It can also be revoked when there is false representation in the application for such license. However, Section 37 of the Nigerian Communication Act provides that there must be adequate notice before such a revocation is being made. Also, the affected party is expected to make a written submission within 3 days of such a notice. The NCA also makes use of licensing as a way of generating revenue income for the government. For example, the 2G mobile network auction, which generated about $1.5 billion for the government. However, this has been refuted by the Nigerian Communication Commission, as they claim that they are majorly concerned with the evenly distribution of licensing to telecommunication service providers that would value them. There are 2 classes of telecommunication licenses established by the Nigerian Communication Act. The first is the individual license. The individual license is defined by virtue of Section 157 of the Nigerian Communication Act, which defines the license as a license for a specified person to perform a specified action. Such a license can be granted by means of an auction or through a first come first served basis. However, Section 42 subsection 1 of the Nigerian Communication Act provides that such grants of the individual license can only be made through in compliance with the registration of an undertaking by the prospective licensee. For example, the Universal Access Service license, which makes use of a technological neutral license to provide a multiple access of service for consumers and telecommunication service network providers. Examples such as the International Gateway Service or the National Long Distance Services. Application for the individual licensing can be made through writing or by any other form or mode as provided for under Section 39 of the Nigerian Communication Act. However, an individual license will not be granted if a telecommunication service provider is already operating under an existing class license. Also, the renewal for an individual license must be made 6 months prior to the expiration of such a license, and upon approval, a renewal fee is paid. However, the Nigerian Communication Commission could still refuse to grant such a license on basis of the telecommunication service provider's failure to comply with the instructions of the Nigerian Communication Act as provided for under Section 43 subsection 3 of the Nigerian Communication Act. An individual license can be revoked on the basis of public safety by virtue of Section 148 of the Nigerian Communication Act. The legal implication of this is that all rights given under such a license is withdrawn. The Nigerian Communication Commission could also make certain sanctions depending on the breach that constituted such a revoker. Another license which is established by the Nigerian Communication Act is the class license. The class license is defined under Section 157 of the Nigerian Communication Act as a license for all and any person to make a special activity, to provide a special activity. The terms and conditions of a class license is such that it is common to all. It only requires registration under the Nigerian Communication Commission to make it possible for application. Examples of such licenses are license for laying of cable, the license for the operation of public pay phones, the license for the maintenance or the repair of telecommunication equipment. A class license can be granted by means of auction, a public tender, invitation, or competitive bidding, as well as selection processes. However, the telecommunication service provider must be such that is registered under the Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, in accordance with the provisions of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA, to become eligible for such a license. Also, the transfer of a telecommunication service provider's right to a third party without express permission by the NCC could lead to a fine of 500,000 naira. This is provided for in paragraph 6 of the Nigerian Communication Regulation 2005. A class license can be revoked. A class license can be revoked for certain reasons, which could include request for deregistration by the telecommunication service provider, or where the telecommunication service provider has not paid the required fee under the license, or where the license is not being used for the action for which it was granted. The Act also provides for the duties of a licensee. Section 146 of the Nigerian Communication Act provides for a licensee's duty to prevent the use of telecommunication facilities, to prevent the criminal use of telecommunication facilities. Section 146 subsection 2 also provides for the licensee's duty to assist the police and other legal enforcement agencies upon the request of the commissioner. Section 146 subsection 3, however, provides that in the event of a criminal proceeding, the licensee will not be liable for any loss that occurred as a result of carrying out the duties highlighted in good faith. In conclusion, I have been able to undertake analysis on the licensing regime of the Nigerian telecommunication industry, and I've been able to examine the aims and objectives of the Nigerian communication industry, the different classes established, as well as the duties. For more information on telecommunication law in general, please visit our website at www.alemsolicitors.com or follow our page on LinkedIn at Alems Telecoms Academy. Thank you.